I found home videos of my family that shouldn't exist. My brother died when I was 7 years old. He was 13. He drowned in the lake down the street from our house. My parents never touched his room. They tried once, but they couldn't do it. Too raw. After that, the door just stayed shut. His room became a kind of museum of him. That was 11 years ago. His room still looks the same. This morning, while I was packing for college, I thought I'd finally go in there. My plan wasn't anything dramatic. I just wanted to grab a few hoodies, maybe a keepsake or two to take with me, something to hold on to when I got homesick. Full transparency, I've been in his room plenty of times before. I've sat on his bed, I've looked through his shelves, but I've never really gone digging. That felt wrong, and I really had no inclination to. I just missed my brother. That wasn't my intention today either. It wasn't my intention to find a stack of DVDs shoved into the bottom drawer of his dresser. There were 3 of them, just labeled 1, 2, and 3. The only DVD player in the house is still hooked up to his old TV. Everything else went streaming years ago. For a minute, I told myself not to do it. They weren't mine. They probably didn't matter. I picked up some of the items I had collected, put the DVDs back in his drawer, and returned to my room. Tonight, they started calling to me. I know how that sounds. I know you're thinking it was just my curiosity eating at me, but it wasn't like that. It felt physical, a pull in my chest. So I crept back across the hall, slipped into his room, locked the door behind me so my parents wouldn't hear, and I put in the first DVD. It was a home video. I didn't even know we had any. I don't remember my parents ever owning a camera. The video starts with static, then clears just enough to show something. The picture is muddy, warped. It could be the living room, but the furniture looks wrong. Everything is too big or too small, shifting every time the frame jitters. Sometimes it almost looks like a bedroom, sometimes like a hallway. No faces, no clear shapes, just flickering shadows that don't match what the voices are saying. Because there are voices, familiar ones, laughter, clinking dishes, and my mom calling my brother's name. It sounds like family in the background, just out of sight. I hear my brother's laughter, and the sound swallows me whole. It rings through my head, bouncing off the bones that make up my skull. Then, beneath it, is another voice. Low, deliberate, close enough that you couldn't miss it. You haven't noticed yet. Then the video cut off, just like that. I scrambled to replay it, not even thinking about the other 2 discs still stacked under the TV. I just wanted to hear him laugh again, that laugh. I tried not to think about the end, though the fear of it was crawling slowly up my spine as I hit play. Because the way it spoke, it sounded like it wasn't part of the recording at all, like it was speaking to the camera, to me. I pressed play again, this time pausing every few seconds, desperate to make sense of what I was seeing. But nothing held still. Everything on the film looked almost familiar, like a room you swear you've been in but can't place. The walls are a little too narrow, and the colors are washed out enough to make it something you've never seen before. It made me feel like my brain was short-circuiting. Then I froze the frame just before the moment he laughed. And there it was, a caption, faint and yellow, burned into the corner of the screen. July 30th, 2015, 7 months after my brother drowned. My first thought was that it was a glitch. It had to be. The camera must have been off by a year. There's no other explanation. I forced myself to breathe and to shove back the rising panic. Then I pressed play again. His laugh filled the room, and for a second, my fear washed away. It was just him again. He was alive, warm, present, a bittersweet rush of comfort and grief. But then the voice returned. Closer this time, wet against the microphone, broken and cutting in and out like static. You noticed. I ripped the DVD out of the player and threw it across the room. I don't even know why I did it. Adrenaline, I guess. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't control myself. I'm trying to think of logical explanations. I want to believe there's one, but every reason I come up with feels paper thin. I just bolted back to my room and dove under the covers, like that would help. I don't want to watch the other videos. I don't, but I can feel them pulling at me, like they're not finished, like they owe me something. I can't sleep. It's dark. It's late. The rain just started. The bathroom faucet always trips, but tonight it sounds so much louder, you could almost confuse it for footsteps. I'm a long-haul trucker. I stopped for a lost kid on a deserted highway in the dead of night. What I saw attached to him and the question he asked is why I don't drive anymore. This happened a few years back. I was doing long haul, mostly cross-country routes, the kind that take you through vast stretches of nothing. You know the ones, where the radio turns to static for hours and the only sign of life is the occasional pair of headlights going the other way, miles apart. I was young, eager for the miles, the money, didn't mind the solitude. Or so I thought. The route I was on took me across a long, desolate stretch of highway that ran between the borders of two large governmental territories. I don't want to say exactly where, but think big, empty spaces, lots of trees, not much else. It was notorious among drivers for being a dead zone. No signal, no towns for 100 miles either side, and prone to weird weather. Most guys tried to hit it during daylight, but schedules are schedules. Mine had me crossing it deep in the night. I remember the feeling. Utter blackness outside of the sweep of my headlights, the kind of dark that feels like it's pressing in on the cab. The only sounds were the drone of the diesel engine, the hiss of the air brakes now and then, and the rhythmic thrum of the tires on asphalt. Hypnotic. Too hypnotic. I'd been driving for about 10 hours with a short break a few states back. Coffee was wearing off. The dashboard lights were a dull green glow, comforting in a way, but also making the darkness outside seem even more absolute. My eyelids felt like they had lead weights attached. You fight it, you know. Slap your face, roll down the window for a blast of cold air, crank up whatever music you can find that hasn't dissolved into static. I was doing all of that. It must have been around 2 or 3 a.m. I was in that weird state where you're not quite asleep, but not fully awake either, like your brain is running on low power mode. The white lines on the road were starting to blur together, stretching and warping. Standard fatigue stuff. I remember blinking hard, trying to refocus. That's when I saw it, or thought I saw it. Just a flicker at the edge of my headlights on the right shoulder of the road. Small, low to the ground. For a split second, I registered a shape, vaguely human-like, and then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness as I passed. My first thought, deer or coyote, common enough, but it hadn't moved like an animal. It had been upright. My brain, sluggish as it was, tried to process it. Too small for an adult, too still for an animal startled by a rig. Then the logical part, the part that was still trying to keep me safe on the road, chimed in. You're tired, seeing things, happens. And I almost accepted that. I really did. Shook my head, took a swig of lukewarm water from the bottle beside me, kept my eyes glued to the road ahead. The image, though, it kind of stuck. A small, upright shape, like a child. No way, I told myself. Out here, middle of nowhere? Middle of the night? Impossible. Kids don't just wander around on interterritorial highways at 3 a.m. It had to be a trick of the light, a bush, my eyes playing games. I've seen weirder things born of exhaustion. Shadows that dance, trees that look like figures. It's part of the job when you're pushing limits. I drove on for maybe another 30 seconds, the image fading, my rational mind starting to win. Just a figment. Then I glanced at my passenger side mirror, habit, always checking. and my blood went cold. Not just cold, it felt like it turned to slush. There, illuminated faintly by the red glow of my trailer lights receding into the distance, was the reflection of a small figure standing on the shoulder of the road, exactly where I thought I'd seen something. It wasn't a bush, it wasn't a shadow, it was small and it was definitely standing there, unmoving as my truck pulled further and further away. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This wasn't fatigue, this was real. There was someone, something back there, and it looked tiny. Every instinct screamed at me, danger, wrong, keep going. But another voice, the one that makes us human, I suppose, whispered something else. A kid? Alone out here? What if they're hurt? Lost? I fought with myself for a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. The image in the mirror was getting smaller, fainter. If I didn't act now, they'd be lost to the darkness again. God, the thought of leaving a child out there, if that's what it was, against my better judgment, against that primal urge to just floor it, I made a decision. I slowed the rig, the air brakes hissing like angry snakes, pulled over to the shoulder, the truck groaning in protest, put on my hazards, their rhythmic flashing cutting into the oppressive blackness. Then I did what you're never supposed to do with a full trailer on a narrow shoulder. I started to reverse, slowly, carefully, my eyes flicking between the mirrors, trying to keep the trailer straight, trying to relocate that tiny figure. The crunch of gravel under the tire sounded unnaturally loud. It took a minute, maybe two, but it felt like an hour. The red glow of my tail lights eventually washed over the spot again, and there it was, a kid. I stopped the truck so my cab was roughly alongside them, maybe 10 feet away, switched on the high beams, hoping to get a better look, and also to make myself clearly visible, as just a truck, not something else. The kid was small, really small. I'd guess maybe 6, 7 years old. Hard to tell in the glare. They were just standing there, on the very edge of the gravel shoulder, right where the trees began. The woods pressed in close on this stretch of highway, tall, dark pines and dense undergrowth that looked like a solid black wall just beyond the reach of my lights. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were facing sort of parallel to the road, just walking, slowly, like they were on a stroll, completely oblivious to the massive 18 trailer that had just pulled up beside them, engine rumbling, lights blazing. My mind reeled. This was wrong, so many levels of wrong. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening, amplifying the crickets, the rustle of leaves in the woods from a breeze I couldn't feel in the cab. My heart was still thumping, a weird mix of fear and adrenaline of a dawning sense of responsibility. I rolled down the window. The night air hit me, cold and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. "Hey," I called. My voice sounded hoarse, too loud in the quiet. "Hey, kid?" No response. They just kept walking, one small, bare foot in front of the other, at a pace that was taking them absolutely nowhere fast. Their head was down, slightly. I couldn't see their face properly. "Kid, are you okay?" I tried again, louder this time. Slowly, so slowly, the kids stopped walking. They didn't turn their head, just angled it a fraction, enough that I could see a pale sliver of cheek in the spill of my headlights. Still not looking at me, still ignoring the multi-ton truck idling beside them. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Not the normal kind of unease, this was deeper, colder. Animals act weird sometimes, but kids? A lost kid should be scared, relieved, something. This one was nothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, friendly, like you're supposed to with a scared kid, even though this one didn't seem scared at all. "Where are your parents? How did you get here?" The kid nodded a bit more, his side of the face more visible, but still a shadowy blackness, his eyes still unseen. No response, just the silence. This was wrong. My internal alarm bells were clanging louder now. My hand hovered near the gear stick. Part of me wanted to slam it into drive and get the hell out of there, but the image of this tiny child, alone, possibly in shock, I couldn't just leave, could I?
Parents, I pushed, my voice a bit sharper than I intended. Are you lost? Finally, the kids stopped walking completely. They turned their head just a little more, still not looking directly at my cab, more towards the front of my truck, into the glare of the headlights. I could see their face a bit better now, pale, featureless in the harsh light, like a porcelain doll. Small, dark smudges that might have been eyes. No expression, none. Not fear, not sadness, not relief, just blank, an unreadable slate. Then a voice, small, thin, like the rustle of dry leaves. Lost. Just that one word. It hung in the air between us. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a fresh wave of concern. Okay, lost. That's something I can deal with. Okay, kid. Lost is okay. We can fix loss. Where do you live? Where were you going? The kid finally, slowly turned their head fully towards my cab, towards me. I still couldn't make out much detail in their face. The angle, the light, something was obscuring it, keeping it in a sort of shadowy vagueness despite the headlights. But I could feel their gaze. It wasn't like a normal kid's look. There was a weight to it, an intensity that was deeply unsettling for such a small form. Home, the kid said, that same thin, reedy voice. Trying to get home. Right, home. Where's home? I asked, leaning forward a bit, trying to project reassurance. Is it near here? Did you wander off from a campsite, a car? There were no campsites for miles, no broken down cars on the shoulder. I knew that. The kid didn't answer that question directly. Instead, they took a small step towards the truck, then another. My hand tensed on the door handle, ready to open it to offer what? A ride? Shelter? I didn't know. It's cold out here, I said, stating the obvious. You should get in. We can get you warm and I can call for help when we get to a spot with a signal. My CB was useless, just static. My phone had shown no service for the last hour. The kid stopped about 5 feet from my passenger door, still in that pale, thin pajama-like outfit, barefoot on the sharp gravel. They should be shivering, crying. They were doing neither. Can you help me? The kid asked. The voice was still small, but there was a different inflection to it now. Less flat, a hint of something else. Pleading, maybe. Yeah, of course I can help you. That's why I stopped. Where are your parents? How did you get here? The kid tilted their head, a jerky, unnatural little movement. They're waiting, at home. Okay, and where's home? Which direction? I gestured vaguely up and down the empty highway. The kid didn't point down the road. They made a small, subtle gesture with their head, a little nod towards the trees, towards the impenetrable darkness of the woods lining the highway. In there, the kid said. My stomach clenched. In the woods? Your home is in the woods? Lost, the kid repeated, as if that explained everything. Trying to find the path, it's dark. Yeah, it's very dark, I agreed, my eyes scanning the tree line. It looked like a solid wall of black. No sign of any path, any habitation, just dense, old-growth forest, the kind of place you could get lost in for days, even in daylight. Can you come out? The kid asked. Help me look? It's not far, I can't see it from here. Their eyes? I still couldn't really see their eyes, just dark hollows. I really think you should get in the truck, I said, my voice firmer now. It's warmer in here. We can figure it out together. The kid took another step closer. They were almost at my running board now. Please, they said. That reedy voice again. My leg hurts. I can't walk much further. If you could just help me a little, just to the path. My internal conflict was raging. My trucker instincts, honed by years of seeing weird stuff and hearing weirder stories at truck stops, were blaring warnings. But the human part, the part that saw a child in distress, was still there, still arguing. I was tired, so damn tired. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight. Maybe this was all some bizarre misunderstanding.
I squinted, trying to see past the kid towards the tree line they had indicated. Was there a faint trail I was missing? A flicker of light deep in the woods? No, nothing. Just blackness, solid, unyielding blackness. And then I saw it. It wasn't something I saw clearly at first. It was more like an anomaly, a disturbance in the darkness behind the kid. The kid was standing with her back mostly to the woods, facing my truck. Behind them, the darkness of the forest was absolute, or it should have been, but there was something connected to them, something that stretched from the small of her back, from under the thin pajama top, and disappeared into the deeper shadows of the trees. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a weird shadow cast by my headlights hitting her at an odd angle. Maybe a rope they were dragging, a piece of clothing snagged on a branch. I leaned forward, trying to get a clearer view. The kid was still talking, their voice a low, persistent murmur. "It's not far. Please, just help me. I'm so cold." But I wasn't really listening to the words anymore. I was focused on that thing behind them. It wasn't a rope, it wasn't a shadow. It was a tube. A long, dark, thick tube. It seemed to emerge directly from the kid's lower back, impossibly, seamlessly. It was dark matte, like a strip of the night itself given form, and it snaked away from the child, maybe 10, 15 feet, before disappearing into the inky blackness between two thick pine trunks. It wasn't rigid. It seemed to have a slight, almost imperceptible flexibility, like a massive, sluggish umbilical cord made of shadow. It didn't reflect any light from my headlamps. It just absorbed it. My breath hitched in my throat. My blood, which had been cold before, now felt like it had frozen solid. This wasn't just wrong. This was impossible, unnatural. The kid was still trying to coax me. "Are you going to help me? It's just there. You're so close." My voice, when I finally found it, was barely a whisper. I couldn't take my eyes off that thing behind them. "Kid, what is that behind you?" The kid flinched. Not a big movement, just a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening of their small frame. Their head, which had been tilted pleadingly, straightened. The blankness on their face seemed to solidify. "What's what?" they asked, their voice suddenly devoid of that pleading tone. It was flat again, colder. That thing," I stammered, pointing with a shaking finger, "coming out of your back, going into the woods? What is that?" The kid didn't turn to look. They didn't need to. Their gaze, those dark, unseen eyes, bored into me. "It's nothing," they said. The voice was still small, but it had a new edge to it, a hardness. "You're seeing things. You're tired." They were using my own earlier rationalization against me. "No," I said, my voice gaining a tremor of conviction born of sheer terror. "No, I'm not. I see it. It's right there. It's connected to you." The kid was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the thumping of my own heart, so loud I was sure they could hear it. The crickets had stopped. The wind seemed to die down. An unnatural stillness fell over the scene. And then the kid's face began to change. It wasn't a dramatic movie monster transformation. It was far more subtle and far more terrifying. The blankness didn't leave, but it sharpened. The pale skin seemed to tighten over the bones. The areas where the eyes were, those dark smudges, seemed to deepen, to become more shadowed, more intense, and a flicker of something ancient and utterly alien passed across their features. It wasn't human anger. It was something older, colder, and infinitely more patient, now strained to its limit. The air in my cab suddenly felt thick, heavy, hard to breathe. "Just come out of the truck," the kid said, and the voice,
Oh God, the voice. It wasn't the small, reedy voice of a child anymore. It was deeper, resonant, with a strange, grating undertone, like stones grinding together. It was coming from that small frame, but it was impossibly large, impossibly old. It vibrated in my chest. Come out, now. The command was absolute. My hand, which had been hovering near the gear stick, now gripped it like a lifeline. My other hand fumbled for the ignition key, which I'd stupidly left in. "What are you?" I choked out, staring at the monstrous thing playing dress-up in a child's form, at the dark pulsating tube that was its anchor to the shadows. The kid's head tilted again, that jerky, unnatural movement. The expression, if you could call it that, was one of pure, unadulterated annoyance, contempt, like I was a particularly stupid insect it had failed to swat. And then it spoke, in that same terrible, resonant, grinding voice. The words it said are burned into my memory, colder than any winter night. "Why?" it rasped, the sound seeming to scrape the inside of my skull. "Why are the fuck humans smarter now?" That was it. That one sentence, the sheer cosmic frustration in it, the implication of past encounters, of easier prey, the utter alien nature of it. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I reacted. Primal fear, the kind that bypasses all higher brain function, took over. My hand twisted the key. The diesel engine roared back to life, a sudden, violent explosion of sound in that horrifying stillness. The kid, the thing, actually recoiled, a small, jerky step back. The expression, that awful, tightened, ancient look, intensified. I slammed the gear stick into drive. My foot stomped on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning on the gravel for a terrifying second before they bit into the asphalt. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. I stared straight ahead, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, the whole cab vibrating around me. The truck surged forward, gaining speed with agonizing slowness. For a horrible moment, I imagined that tube thing whipping out, trying to snag the trailer, to pull me back, to drag me into those woods. I imagined that small figure, with its ancient, terrible voice, somehow keeping pace. I risked a glance in my driver's side mirror. It was standing there, on the shoulder, unmoving. The headlights of my departing truck cast its small silhouette into sharp relief, and behind it, the dark tube was still visible, a thick, obscene cord snaking back into the endless night of the forest. It didn't seem to be retracting or moving, it just was. The thing didn't pursue, it just stood and watched me go, and that, somehow, was almost worse. The sheer confidence, the patience, like it knew there would be others, or maybe it was just annoyed that this particular attempt had failed. I drove. I don't know for how long. I just drove. My foot was welded to the floor. The engine screamed. I watched the speedometer needle climb, far past any legal or safe limit for a rig that size, on a road that dark. I didn't care. The image of that thing, that child shape with its dark umbilical to the woods, and that voice, that awful grinding voice asking its horrifying question, was burned on the inside of my eyelids. I must have driven for an hour, maybe more, at speeds that should have gotten me killed or arrested before the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a bone-deep, shaking exhaustion that was more profound than any fatigue I'd ever known. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely keep the wheel straight. Tears were streaming down my face, not from sadness, but from sheer, unadulterated terror and relief. When the first hint of dawn started to gray the eastern sky, and my phone finally beeped, indicating a single bar of service, I pulled over at the first wide spot I could find. I practically fell out of the cab, vomiting onto the gravel until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I sat there on the cold ground, shaking for a long time, watching the sun come up, trying to convince myself that it had been a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But I knew it wasn't. The detail of that tube, the voice, the question. You don't hallucinate something that specific, that coherent, that utterly alien. I never reported it. Who would I report it to? What would I say? Officer, I saw a little kid who was actually an ancient cosmic horror tethered to the woods by a nightmare umbilical cord, and it got mad because I didn't want to be its dinner. They'd have locked me up, breathalyzed me, drug tested me, sent me for a psych eval. I finished that run on autopilot, dropped the load, drove my rig back to the yard, and I quit. I told them I was burned out, needed a break. They tried to convince me to stay, offered me different routes, more pay. I just couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that kid, that tube, those woods. Every dark road felt like a trap. I found a local job, something that keeps me home at night. I don't drive in remote areas anymore if I can help it, especially not at night. I still have nightmares. Sometimes when I'm very tired, driving home late from somewhere, I'll see a flicker at the edge of my vision on the side of the road, and my heart will try to beat its way out of my chest. I don't know what that thing was. An alien? A demon? Something else. Something that doesn't fit into our neat little categories. All I know is that it's out there, and it's patient, and it seems to have learned that its old tricks aren't as effective as they used to be. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That question haunts me. It implies they weren't always. It implies that once upon a time, we were easier. That maybe, just maybe, people like me, tired and alone on dark roads, used to just step out of the cab when asked, and were never seen again. So, if you're ever driving one of those long, lonely stretches of road deep in the night and you see something you can't explain, maybe just keep driving. Maybe being smarter now means knowing when not to stop, knowing when to ignore that little voice telling you to help because what's asking for help might not be what it seems. Stay safe out there, and for God's sakes, stay on the well-lit roads. Now that God has revealed himself, none of us are allowed to die. It was a Thursday when God revealed himself to all of humanity. The day started ordinary enough, but sometime in the afternoon, I felt a presence in my chest and a voice in my ear. "I have returned," the voice said. As it just so happened that everyone had heard that voice, everyone felt that presence, and soon everyone stepped out of their dwellings and looked up at the sky and saw the clouds disappear and a brilliant light shine for just an instant, a moment, a light so brilliant it couldn't have belonged to the sun, and it had to have been something else. And it was clear. The feeling in our hearts was certain. The Lord was real, and he was here. What happened next was likely what you would have expected. The world became kinder, more compassionate, not by virtue of an intrinsic force of goodness overtaking us, but rather the fear of retribution. You didn't want to fight, didn't want to insult, didn't want to judge, because you didn't know what would happen when you did. A safe life, with the recent supernatural developments, was one that contained a bit more charity, a bit more turning the other cheek, and a bit more feigned grace. Fake it till you make it, after all. I watched for signs of what would change next. We were all under the watchful eye, but it at least felt, incorrectly we would realize, that the Almighty's interventions had been minimal so far. Everyone found out at their own pace that death had become a thing of the past. Some knew immediately when their loved ones in hospice care saw remarkable turnarounds in health. Others missed the memo until mass consensus had been established, when scientists and statisticians alike revealed that by every known metric, natural disasters, car crashes, heart attacks, the number of daily reported deaths had plummeted from an average of 160,000 to 0. Life went on, and as it did, I started hearing whispers of what worship was. Depending on who you talked to, online or at the water cooler, you'd hear a different rumor, a different interpretation. It wasn't until my mom was called upon that I knew what it was. I remember it vividly. 7 o'clock, after dinner, Mom got up from her seat in the living room, got ready, donned her coat, stepped towards the shoe rack. "Where you heading, hun?" my father asked her. "I've been summoned." "I'm sorry?" "The Lord has summoned me for worship." I remember just how odd the moment felt. Life had been tinged with a certain unreality since the grand question was blown wide open. Seeing Mom head for the door both did and didn't make any sense. Had it been any other year, we would have thought she was doing a bit. "Did you, need a ride?" my dad asked confusedly. "The Lord would like me to walk," she responded. Then she turned the knob and went outside. I was 17 at the time. My brother was 20. We both asked Dad if we should follow her. He told us to stay home, that he'd accompany her and figure out what was going on. He didn't return until the next evening. We rushed downstairs when we heard the front door open, hoping we'd catch both parents entering. Instead, it was just him, disheveled, weary, a muted expression on his face. I'll never forget the way he looked at us. "She's standing in a field," he said. Then, "There are other people there too." 4 months passed since Mom was first called to worship. During that time, we learned something more about God's interventions. The new commandments, as I'd termed them in my brain, were panning out as the following: "Thou shalt not die," via disease, natural disasters, etc. "Thou shalt be called to worship at a random time." Now, I'll admit, neither of those are as catchy as the OG commandments. This is, after all, not the official word of the Lord, merely just my reading of the tea leaves. Commandment 3 came to me in a dream. Kidding, it came to me in a YouTube video. It was your usual street fight video. 2 guys on a sidewalk corner, for reasons unknown, exchanging blows, until the bigger of the 2 got the upper hand and started wailing and wailing, then secured a knife and, like a light bulb went off in his head, stopped, lifted himself from his rival. The guy getting his ass handed to him stood up also. And then both of them just walked, single file, empty expressions on their faces. Manchurian candidate shit. So, 3, if thou attempt to kill another, thou shalt immediately be summoned to worship, was the takeaway. But what, pray tell, was worship really? I visited my mom one afternoon to understand better. The spot she'd journeyed to was an hour's drive from home, so she must have trekked for hours that first night. I arrived at the field, to the sight of thousands of people standing evenly spaced, 3 feet apart in every direction. They all faced the same way, heads tilted slightly towards the sky, perfectly still, no movement. I maneuvered the rows for what felt like an endless amount of time. When I finally found her, it genuinely felt like I just got lucky. It was my first time seeing her since she'd been gone. I'd mentally convinced myself that there was no need for me to come out here. After all, she'd be coming home, any day now. "Mom," I'll admit I was a bit emotional. To my surprise, despite her fixed posture and eyes tilted up, her mouth moved. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" "I am well. I am in worship." She wasn't totally being herself. "Mom, are you able to move?" "I am in worship," she repeated. "But do you want to come home?" The softness in her tone didn't change, but it did seem like she was imbuing her words with some kind of subtext, trying to say something more. "I can't, love." And then, enunciated even clearer, "I think you should go home, perhaps before you're forced to stay too. But, home. Get going now, dear." I told her I loved her, then departed through the gathering of worshipers, all of them laid out so absolutely perfectly. Like a chessboard, everyone had their spot, and there was plenty of land to go. So much so that I had to wonder what spots myself, my friends, Dad, older brother, and everyone I'd ever loved could potentially occupy one day. En route, I spotted a few other visitors. They looked more morose than I was. They whispered words of affirmation and love to their respective persons.
hearing responses sure, but said responses from the corner of their loved ones' mouths, seeming light, quiet, curt, God-centric, like they were standing at someone's gravesite, albeit more a statue than a grave, a commemoration of someone long gone. But no one was really gone. Mom hadn't left. Worship would be over soon. It had to be. Maybe another couple of weeks, couple months at most, and then she'd be home and the Lord would call someone else to take her place. 4. When thou art in worship, thou shalt not age. Commandment 4 became common knowledge a year later. The amount of folks called to worship had steadily gone up during this time. This was global, of course, so anyone curious could at any time look up a live stream of the designated worship areas around the world to see people standing uniformly, frozen, perfectly spaced, in parks, beaches, city squares, you name it. Every town, every city had its place. My place, I supposed, would be the same field where Mom was, unless it filled up by the time it was my turn, in which case it could very well have been somewhere completely random and unknown. The no aging revelation was again something discerned by the ever-decreasing amount of practicing scientists on the planet. Outside of worship, life was still progressing normally more or less, except for that final, tricky death step. Worship grief was a real term now, the experience of losing someone to God, essentially. Not yet coined was the secret counterpart buried in all our brains, that God knows, literally, we weren't brave enough to speak. I tried my best to keep my thoughts pure. I couldn't help but assume that thoughts of blasphemy contained within the 17 or so centimeters of my brain were fair game for our omnipotent ruler to scrutinize. It was a nice fantasy, though, the idea that there might be a spot, a street corner without God's CCTV camera, somewhere you could just be you without fear of your insubordination, expediting the ticket to your special place on God's canvas. Support groups existed, so I joined one, and that's where the no aging element of worship was first pitched to me as one of the many pros of the whole construction. I didn't find Commandment 4 comforting, but I smiled and nodded nonetheless. The world was still the world, but less so. I'd take the train to work and notice that the average of people's expressions had gone from tired and cranky to subtly mortified. I once saw a woman break down and start crying, and I can almost swear she said under her breath, "I don't want to go." Or maybe I was just projecting. Nightmares weren't the same anymore. The worst dream I could have now wasn't the one where I was chased by a murderer or caught in a storm. Rather, the one where I'd stop in place while I was doing something mundane. I would hear a voice in my head. The voice would say, "You have been summoned." My feet would start walking on their own, and I'd know exactly where I was going, even if I didn't know where it was. I'd jolt awake in my bed, sweating, praying, funny as it were, that I still had executive function. That and the little moments where I'd feel a random twitch in my leg, those were the killers. And then 4 years passed, and it must have been close to 30% of the global population then, in worship. My dad, an unfortunate addition to that communion. My brother and I never got a chance to see him exit stage left, into the crowd the day he was called upon. The day that he was called upon,
He was out and about. I believe he'd come to see the mechanic and maybe had a physio appointment on the docket afterwards, too. That didn't matter now. We held out hope until the 3rd day of him being gone. The field where Mom stood was full now, and at this point, our city had quite a few landmarks for a congregation. My brother and I took turns visiting these different areas to see if we could maybe catch our dad standing amongst the crowd. No luck. Around then, I started coming around to what the 5th commandment might have been. Again, this was just me spitballing, but getting any sense of rules or structure during this time was oddly a place of comfort. It was nice to know what, if any, parameters there were to this. It was a redundant rule, really, as I'm sure you'll understand once I spell it out clearly. The thought came to me when I'd see people standing atop high-rises, right close to the edge, as if they were about to leap, and then they'd just turn around. Or when I'd spot people on the bridge walking alongside the cars, albeit robotically,
And I'd wonder if I was just being a cynic or if maybe some of the pedestrians strolling alongside traffic had originally arrived with ulterior motives. With my brother's mistake, it all became clear. I walked into his room one day to catch him sitting at his desk, a gun pressed to his temple, his hand trembling, the barrel shaking, finger resting on the trigger. I froze in place, and I'll admit, I had the following thought. Please, God, let the bullet pass through his skull. Let him die. Instead, the gun fell to the ground. His hands ceased quaking. He stood up from his chair, walked to his closet, grabbed his coat, put it on. "Marcus?" I asked. "Just gonna head out," he said. To what?" "Worship," he said, matter-of-factly. "I've been called upon." He headed for the front door. I trailed. "Marcus," I said again. He ignored me. Listen, I'm only asking out of curiosity." I tried not to sign my own release form with my words. "Are you able to control your body at all, even a little bit?" "No, and I am going to worship." "You can't even... If you were feeling the call, it would be clear to you too, and now I need to go." He grabbed his shoes. I walked him the whole way there, 5 hours, until he took his spot in the cleared-out parking lot of a now-defunct amusement park, alongside thousands of men, women, and children. He didn't say anything to me on the trek there, though, to be fair, I didn't say much to him either. 5. If thou attempts to take thine own life, you guessed it, thou shalt immediately be summoned to worship. Gallows humor. The world coped with gallows humor. 70% of the world, after all, give or take, was in the worship state now. I tried my best not to think about it. Standing still, head turned towards the sky, body frozen for weeks, months, or in the case of my mom and dad, years on end. It was selfish, but I would struggle to visit my mother. When I did go, it would be for a quick side hug, a quick "I love you," and then a hasty exit. I would always wish that she were in a deep trance state, too out of it to return the greeting, but she was instead consistently lucid. "Love you too, sweetheart," she'd say, way too presently. It made me uncomfortable. To be that awake, that aware of what was going on, I didn't like it. The headcanon I was trying to run with was that worship would be a blissful, effortless, dreamlike state. All of the evidence was to the contrary. To God's credit, it seemed like we could talk about worship fear openly. Certainly all of the support groups, online communities, and such were reflecting a different, more honest state for men. YouTube videos and TikTok clips talking about a surefire way to escape, tactics to reality shift out of this timeline to another, deep states of meditation that would allow you to pass peacefully without being summoned to one of God's many gathering grounds. And of course, all too many video essays, scrutinizing the Lord, complaining about the state of things, calling for a revolution, madness really. There were 2 moments that stuck with me, moments that really captured the spirit of things. The first was the final video of that guy who was planning an elaborate Rube Goldberg-esque escape from his physical body, doused himself and his room in gasoline, had a string tied to a blade suspended above his head, and a timer with an explosion counting down. I commended the hell out of his effort. The moment hit, he tossed a match from his seat to the corner, flames ignited, he pulled the string, and then the fire fizzled as soon as it reached him. The blade froze in midair, the explosion never happened. Thank goodness, really, as the camera footage eventually discovered and uploaded was gold. And then our friend got up from his seat, still dripping and flammable, and walked out of frame. Commandment 5, my friend. Commandment 5. The other was the video of that big streamer who kept faking that he'd been summoned while live on Twitch. His face would go blank, he'd get up from his seat, and he'd mechanically step out of his room. He'd done the fake out so many times that when it was the real thing, chat was in denial for hours. Hilariously horrifying. People still worked, still clung to routine, but it was pretty fruitless. I'd see street preachers with a megaphone telling us that our time was soon. Like, no shit, my guy.
Apple, despite most of their workforce having clocked out permanently, still managed to come out with new products somehow. Streaming was mainly reruns, however. Probably hard to commit to a full season of material when your director, lead actor, lead writer, and everyone else on set could step out at a moment's notice and never come back. Fewer work everywhere you went, but hey, it made sense. Less customers and all. I picked up a coffee from the Starbucks in my area that still had employees and went off to see my brother. It'd been 2 years. His was the hardest one for me. After all, I knew deep down he wouldn't have wanted me to pity him, but holy shit, did I. I returned to the parking lot. It was much busier with people now, at capacity it seemed. I maneuvered the gaps and finally got to him. "Hey," I said. "Hi," he said. "How is it?" I saw his chest expand and contract with his steady breaths, head lifted, eyes angled up. "How is it?" I asked again. "I'm in worship," he said. "And it'll probably be my time soon too. Help me prepare." Again, he said nothing. "Bro," I said. It took him a while to finally speak. "You know, the thought I think about the most is that some random bullet could be flying around somehow. Just a random bullet, fired from hundreds of miles away, and it gets past God's radar, and it all goes black for me. It's my favorite thought. It's the dream that's keeping me going." I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. Please, please, God, find a way to kill me. And then I had to go. I think I heard him say, "Please stay, I need conversation." Or maybe I imagined it. Or maybe I heard it bang on clear, but I didn't want to think about it because it made me feel like shit. Survivorship bias is a really strange feeling to have when you're still on the sinking Titanic. Sure, your section of the ship isn't submerged yet, but you'd be there soon with Leo and the gang. Whoever was keeping track had stopped counting. Almost everyone was gone. It was dumb luck, pure and simple. Dumb luck that I hadn't been called upon yet. My soft research started the moment Dad disappeared, but you can be damn sure it escalated after the conversation with my brother. I approached everything with an open mind and tried anything I could, specific meditations, incantations to the Lord for the global worship session to end. I went to specific coordinates in towns where rumor had it people could actually die. My trips were immeasurably disappointing. No death to be found anywhere. The old constants, death and taxes. The new constants, immortality and worship. I was en route to my 80th or so desperate attempt to find salvation, see annulation. A picture of a flyer that was shared to one of the many holy shit we need to die ASAP groups I was a part of detailed the church that one Reverend Lucien Ferrer was practicing at. He made lofty promises about his support group that I was sure he wouldn't be able to deliver on. The bottom of the flyer reading much like a pyramid scheme. Join a community with a surefire solution to worship fear. No testimonials because we have a 100% success rate. Come and see the miracle for yourself. But, desperate times and all that nonsense. I made the 4-hour drive, on the way spotting some of the many new landmarks of people gathered, perfectly spaced apart, facing the same direction, heads slanted upwards, locked in perpetual admiration for the Lord. It felt like my time was closing in, like I'd stop the car any moment, step out, walk along the side of the road until I reached my place. I arrived at the destination. The church looked desolate from the outside, looked long abandoned. No clue what Reverend Lucien was running here, but hey, if it was a prank, he got me. I stepped inside and then I felt it, the lack of the feeling of the Lord in my chest. It felt like my bond with the Creator had been severed. At the entrance, there was a table with a sign-in form and a pen. I scribbled my name and the time. The interior stretched quite long. I took a seat in the pews. There were a few others seated in the rows. They looked like they'd been waiting for quite some time. After a little while, a man came out on the stage. Just gonna be a couple more hours, but he should be seeing to all of you soon, he said. It felt like I was at the doctor's office for an appointment. He didn't reappear for quite some time as promised.
Time stood still. I heard the tick, tick, tick of the clock. My hands on my legs. Don't move involuntarily, don't move involuntarily. He came out, called someone else's name. Thomas Gilmore, is Thomas Gilmore here? And sure enough, Thomas got up from his seat and followed the man to the back. Tick, tick, tick. Eve Merritt. Eve? That's me, her hand shot up. That's me, and off she went to the back. Tick, tick, tick. I really, truly didn't know how much time I had left. It just says Lily here, he said, eyeing the sheet. Lily? She's just in the bathroom, another stranger said. All right, we'll take her when she's back. And then the sun was going down. How long would this support session run for? I couldn't wait for them to close up shop for the evening. I couldn't come back tomorrow. I couldn't wait. I couldn't fucking... All right, got a Jake Miller here? Jake? Me, I shouted. Immediately, I stood from my seat. I had the horrific thought that my body would turn itself around. I'd leave the church and walk right into the sunset. But instead, my footsteps made their way up the aisle, and then I was standing right in front of him. To the back, he said, and I followed him there. A rather confusing and twisting pathway past closed doors, boxes, mess, and hallways until we got there, to a confessional booth. In there? I asked him. In there, he said. I entered the booth. There was blood on the seat. Blood. What a novel sight. Take a seat. Don't worry about the dried, it's fine. You'll be good. Sit, said who I presumed was the priest sitting on the other side of the partition. I did as he requested. Reverend Lucian? I asked. It took him a second to respond, to register. Yes, Rev Lucian, sure. I continued. I haven't really done this confessional thing before, but I guess, are you supposed to ask me to confess something? Yes, please confess whatever is on your mind. I took a second to gather my thoughts. Right, yes, so I heard the sound of something being cleaned by a cloth, followed by a deliberate, echoing snap. Was he eating? Right, so I saw your ad, found your ad rather, and I suffer from worship fear, I guess. I don't want to commit blasphemy against the Lord or anything, but I heard the echo of another bite. Jesus, a little rude man. But not sure if I want to stand in a field for 100 years in worship, I guess. It's not 100 years, he said, chewing loudly. It's forever, eternity. That was his little project. His little what now? Heaven on earth, eternity. That was always the plan, for all of you to become one with the Lord for the rest of time. Of course, he wanted to show up when there was the most people, right? He said, crunching. Like, probably less exciting when it's fucking cavemen, right? Billions of people or 10,000 cavemen. Which would you choose? I'm sorry, what does this have to do with anything? Nothing, sorry. Please continue. Right, I said, gathering. And, no, I guess that was it. It said you have a surefire solution on your ad. Yeah, he said. I can kill you. You can kill me? Yeah, right here, right now. Of course, if you need time to think about it, it's a no. And if you step out of the church, God will summon you right then and there to be a part of the flock. That's what? How would you know that? What's your answer? There are people waiting and I'm a busy guy. Busy reverend. I mean, the answer would be yes, but that'd be in violation of Commandment 3. I guess you don't know what that is. Basically, I've been trying to keep track of everything, and Commandment 3 is my shorthand for the whole, if you try to... Suddenly, the partition fell. Swiftly came the knife into my jugular. I couldn't believe it. Blood spilled on my shirt, my legs. I gagged, my vision blurring as I tried to focus on the man who delivered the blow.
The man who had a bloody knife in one hand, half-eaten apple in the other. The Lord and I have an agreement. He has his space and I have mine, albeit this one is much smaller than I'm used to. I felt my head lower involuntarily, my eyes acclimated to the final shot, myself drenched in red. "You're welcome," I think I heard him say. And then it all went black. A miracle.